Dr. Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts, members of the head table, head of mission for USAID and this Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, all those of you gathered from all the different parts of the Caribbean nation and parts of the United States, and maybe some areas that I haven't called at this time, but by no means you're left out. So I want to bid you a very pleasant good morning and say how happy I am to be here in St. Kitts. This morning we gather here at the Marriott Hotel for the 8th meeting of the Technical Working Group on Crime Prevention, focusing on at-risk youth and vulnerable populations with a view to change social norms through youth engagement. Let me first say how delighted I am to have been given the opportunity to bring remarks on behalf of the Caribbean Community Secretariat, CARICOM, and its Secretary General, Erwin LaRocque, along with our Crime and Security Program Manager, Sherwin Toyne-Stevenson, who I'm deputizing for. As co-chair of this initiative, CARICOM, I say kudos to the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, the driver of the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. With the pleasantries out of the way, let's look at some of the disturbing reasons why we're here today. According to the Huffington Post, every 98 seconds, someone in the United States is sexually assaulted. That person could be a man, a boy, a woman, or a girl. UN Women Caribbean says 1 in 3 women or girls in the Caribbean will experience domestic violence. Over 1/3 of the region's women will experience domestic violence, and over 1/3 of the region's women or girls report incidents of intimate partner violence or sexual violence. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime bolstered this argument by reporting that every one of the Caribbean nations has a sexual violence rate that is higher than the world average. Evidence suggests that gender and its intersectionalities create vulnerabilities for certain populations who already find themselves living at the margins. We talk about people with disabilities, people of different sexual orientation and ethnicity, along with some contextual factors such as humanitarian crises, including conflict and post-conflict situation, and times of natural disaster. And we know that is very common in the Caribbean region in terms of disaster. Those times create situations where it's increasingly important to think of women and girls because they're particularly vulnerable at those times. Children are especially vulnerable to violence, especially during their early years. Research shows that those exposed to especially violence in the home develop serious problems such as uncontrollable behavior and regression, oftentimes seeing the violence as acceptable behavior as they move on in their own intimate relationships in later years. All these examples create a culture that reinforces the normalization of violence for all of us. It doesn't matter where we're from. Over the past 2 decades, much has been written about boys' underachievement in schools in the Caribbean region in particular, and how much this impacts on their becoming at-risk youth. A critical part of that underachievement, however, is found to be rooted in masculinity and gender inequality, 2 of the push factors for gender-based violence in the region and the world. And that is bolstered, particularly in the Caribbean, by a 2015 Youth and Masculinities and Violence research, in which over 1,000 students, teachers, and parents were surveyed from 5 Caribbean countries, namely Belize, where I'm from, Guyana, Jamaica, Suriname, and Trinidad. The study was commissioned by the Caribbean Community Secretariat, CARICOM, and it identified several areas of concerns, among them dominant forms of masculinity, which appeared to be operating not along with, but at the expense of other forms. For example, boys are being forced to conform to societal expectations of risky behavior. And if they don't, then they risk being labeled and ridiculed by their peers as well as critical adult groups. Aggression and physical violence continue to be viewed as normal male behavior, while similar behavior from females is viewed negatively. Harmful beliefs exist among young males and manifest themselves in a variety of circumstances which give approval to gender-based violence. As part of recommendations emanating from the study, participants, who are youth themselves, identified school and work as important places of influence as far as the construction of masculinity, and as such explicitly state that teachers should be educated as they play an important role, not only preventing gender-based violence, but also in passing on positive messages across the curricula to students that violence is wrong and masculinity can be rooted in peace. We need to start engaging our youth. We need to start the conversation. And today's meeting is an important step. While not the first step, it's an important continuation. The Caribbean Basin Security Initiative aligns very well with the CARICOM Strategic Plan 2015-2019 in two strategic priority areas. One, in building social resilience across the region, and in building economic resilience. Achieving the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda is also key in all that we do as a region. I'm glad that the goals of the CBSI mirrors the 17 goals of the SDGs. This is how we should truly work as a region, because we're always stronger together. I think of goal 3, good health and well-being. If we reduce the crime and violence in our region, we're truly on our way to a healthier community and people. I think of goal 4, which speaks to quality education. Unemployment is an issue, but we also must equip our people with marketable skills. So it's not only academic skills, but it's relevant education and training. Goal 5, gender equality and women's empowerment, the drive of all other 16 goals. The elimination of violence is one of the targets of Goal 5. There are a total of 169 targets with the 17 goals. Goal 8, decent work and economic growth. With those few words, I look forward, along with you, to a productive 2-day meeting in which we will all be introduced to research findings, available data, along with good practice that we can learn from and use within our work to improve the lives and circumstances of our at-risk youth. I thank you.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.